Jabba from Gracia. This is the Rorschach, Georgia update from the 24th of July, 2025. Quick summary of what's going down in Georgia. Saturday, the 19th European Parliament published a critical statement about Georgia. They said the country couldn't join the EU until it held fair elections and dropped its authoritarian path. It also said the current government was not legitimate. Parliament adopted a report prepared by MEP Rasa Juknevichnie, who says things in Georgia have gotten much worse since the EU Commission's 2024 report. EU criticized the Georgian Dream or the Kotzebue for rigging elections, cracking down on civil society, and pushing repressive laws. They labeled jailed opposition leaders as political prisoners and said upcoming municipal elections won't reflect on people's will. They also urged Hungary and Slovakia to stop blocking sanctions against Georgia. In related news, in response to growing criticism from the EU over the past few weeks, the Kotzebue are once again reviving its conspiracy theory that Western powers have been trying to push Georgia into the Russia-Ukraine war since 2022, and that all tensions with the EU started because the ruling party refused to open a second front against Russia. Friday the 18th, Prime Minister Irakli Kobakhidze in his haircut told reporters that a Western official personally asked Georgia to join the war. He predictably refused to name the person, saying only that the meeting happened in February 2022, before the second Russian invasion of Ukraine. He said pressure, including financial threats against Bidzina Ivanishvili, the ruling party's founder and richest man in Georgia, began when the Georgian side refused to cooperate. Despite these allegations, the Kotzebue have not delivered any evidence to support its statement, and as we all know, they lie frequently. Just a day before, Kobakhidze said that his party would ask the Constitutional Court to ban the coalition Strong Georgia, or Lelo Tzlieri, and Gacharia's For Georgia, or Sakartvelosvis, even though both plan to run in the municipal elections, which the Kotzebue are very much in favor of. He said all four major opposition parties are a single political force tied to the United National Movement, or the Natsebi, and foreign interests, and running in elections changes nothing. Back in May, Parliament passed a law allowing the court to ban parties whose goals include overthrowing or violently changing the constitutional order, undermining the country's independence, violating its territorial integrity, promoting war or violence, inciting national, regional, religious, or social hatred, or having created an armed formation. Kotzebue is accusing the Natsebi of most of these, and since they say the other three major parties are cooperating with the Natsebi, all of them should be banned. So there you have it. Deadly shooting in a restaurant located in Batumi in western Georgia. It left one Turkish citizen dead, another injured on Friday the 18th. Prosecutors say that the two attackers, who are also Turkish, crossed the Georgian border illegally that same day. One of them opened fire on two fellow Turkish nationals inside the restaurant. After the attack, the shooter and his companion fled the scene. Police arrested both suspects shortly after. While authorities haven't revealed the reason behind the shooting, police say the conflict between the parties started back in Turkey. Still in Batumi, the Georgian Revenue Service froze the bank accounts of Batumi Levi, independent media outlet known for its long history of publishing critical reports about the current government, no matter who that government was, because all of its predecessors were also heavily criticized. It stands as one of the few strong voices of critical journalism outside the capital. Tax office demanded Batumi Levi pay over 280,000 lari, which is more than $100,000 within 5 days, or face account seizures and property auctions, including their office equipment. This amount includes unpaid taxes, fines, and penalties. Even though Batumi Levi has been making monthly payments, the tax service rejected the request for a payment plan. Batumi Levi sees this as an attack on critical voices, which it of course is, pointing out that pro-government outlets like Imedi TV officially owe the state 17 million lari, more than $6 million, but have not received similar treatment. Funny how that works. Speaking of Batumi Levi, there's an update on the case of its founder, Mzia Maglobeli, who was arrested in January for slapping Batumi's chief of police during a court hearing on Monday the 21st. Prosecutors said that they were open to discussing a plea deal if the defense initiated it. Mzia's lawyer said her client won't seek a plea deal because that would involve acknowledging guilt, which Maglobeli refused to do. Mzia faces up to 7 years in prison for slapping Batumi's police chief. She said she did it in response to inhuman treatment while in custody for administrative offense, including being spat on by a policeman. International watchdogs, the European Parliament, Clooney Foundation, and journalist groups have condemned the case as politically motivated and an attack on press freedom and demanded her release. Batumi bank account was not the only one that got frozen this week. Elena Khostadia, the only leader for Coalition for Change, or Tbilisi, who is not imprisoned, and the head of the DROA party, says that authorities froze both her personal and party bank accounts over unpaid fines. She has personally been fined several times during the pro-European protests. Khostadia mocked the ruling on social media, saying the account only had 17 lari in it, around $6, and she managed to move party donations to a safe space beforehand. Gogi Kobularia, who served as Minister of Economy between 2018 and 2019, criticized the Kotsebi's political shift in the business talk show Sertili. He said the party deepened ties with Russia for economic stability, which kind of paid off, but made a serious mistake by aggressively pushing anti-European laws and rhetoric. According to Kobulia, when Russia invaded Ukraine, Kotsebi feared that fully aligning with the EU, including sanctioning Russia, would damage the economy, especially Russian tourism and trade. He believes the ruling party made a strategic choice to secure conservative voters by abandoning the European path, even if that meant losing pro-EU voters. Kobulia said the Kotsebi won't repeal the controversial law, but urged them to meet at least some of the EU's recommendations to preserve visa-free travel. We'll see. On Thursday, the 17th, security officials in Georgia arrested one local man and one foreign citizen in Batumi for trying to buy and sell uranium illegally. The price of the radioactive material was $3 million. Authorities say this type of uranium, based on its radioactive properties, could be used to build explosive devices and carry out terrorist attacks with deadly consequences. More crime. On Friday, the 18th, Finance Ministry's investigative services arrested 12 members of an organized group for scamming the state of over 800,000 lari, which is about $300,000 US. The former employee of the Rural Development Agency said led the scheme by bringing in people with no ties to farming. They applied for agricultural equipment grants through a state co-financing program. Several fake companies backed them with forged invoices to make the entire operation look real. The group pulled this off 8 times and used the money for personal stuff instead of for farming. Authorities are still digging into the case and expect the total damage and number of suspects to rise. Business news. On Wednesday, the 23rd, the Executive Board of the International Monetary Fund, or IMF, approved its updated assessment of Georgia. They expect strong, I say with air quotes, growth in the money supply, or as the neoliberals metaphorically call it, economic growth this year, projecting an over 7% rise in GDP. Since 2021, Georgia has averaged over 9% annual growth thanks to the post-COVID recovery, logistics, migration, meaning Russians, and transit trade linked to the war with Ukraine. There's a good euphemism for you. Inflation remains stable. Public debt dropped to 36% in 2024. The Kremlin and China's goal of Georgia becoming a sanctions-busting transshipment economy is good for what the IMF calls economic growth, but not so good for the Georgian population. The IMF also points to political uncertainty and possible sanctions that could hit tourism, investment, and the lari. They urge reforms to strengthen the national bank's independence, overhaul its leadership structure, and improve governance. Finally, on Wednesday, the 23rd, Justin Timberlake performed a massive show in Tbilisi as part of the government-funded Starring Georgia program, which aims to boost tourism by sponsoring concerts from world-famous artists, including Guns N' Roses. Tinatin Rukhadze, the Minister of Culture, said over 20,000 foreign tourists went to Georgia specifically for the Timberlake concert, held in Dinamo Arena. In total, around 55,000 people attended the event. Nearly 2,000 locals were employed by the program. And that's it for this week. Thanks for joining us. Uploading in just a few days a special ramble on the best and most important Georgian slang with the well-known genius and Kaitipi Mindia Arabuli. These are all the slang words that all Utsukhalebi should know. Along with that, we will have a survey in the show notes for all native speakers to vote on the best, most important slang terms for the rest of us to study and understand. Nachmandis.